end of April, beginning of May 2019. Got quite an exciting new events to get you up to speed with the golf experiment. Mitch's Golf Diary was all about logging and trying to get some sort of a benchmark or a baseline for the work that I'm looking to invest in my game. And it's been a really tough 3 or 4 months just from just asking some really quality questions. The type of questions you ask will determine the quality of your life. So I feel like that quote has stuck very, very much in the reason for this next segment of the Golf Diary. The Golf Diary was really a great way to log and analyze where I've been going wrong on the course, because the results were showing that when I was alone, sometimes not having any interference or pressure, I was able to put some exceptional rounds in my scoring. And getting to some of the swing instruction that started about 2 years ago, so that's 2 seasons of me just being a part-time golfer and working full-time. I was one of those that fell into a tendency to do mega practice and then not follow it up with 3 or 4 days continuing a momentum. So I've learned quite a lot just from this month, because it took Club Champs to sort of get me to introspectively look much deeper into the mental performance as well as my emotional state, because golf is definitely a game where what's happening off the course and what's happening in your life will come through when the chaos arrives. So it has been 2 seasons of maybe my golf maybe going backwards, but I feel like I have come out of the darkness from a very obsessive and scientific point of view. So I would imagine being a new club member, it would be very strange to see the commitment, and maybe strange to see the dedication to a committed path. But I feel like that's who I am as a person. I'm very all in when it comes to I'm going to invest all my attention. Then I'm going to do it properly. So the podcasts, using different technology on the course, also using my sports science background in communicating with my on-course coach and also the swing coach. We're all part of Mitch's Golf Diary, and we've come to a part of the season where we have goals and we have objectives. The season is, to me, starting only now. It's always been, if I look at my track history, there's always a big bang, because December, generally you have more time to practice, so you end up putting yourself out there for maybe some tournaments in January, February, March, and then based on those performances, you generally decide whether you can extend your season into June or July. Well, now I'm taking a very different stance, where I believe it has to have a proper 9 or 10 month cycle, where it's not just 3 or 4 months and then I've got to start all over again. So the swing instruction's taken a really long time for me to maybe understand, because when I understand something, then I develop quite a lot of rhythm and quite a lot of expression with that type of information. So I would say to you, it's been definitely a lot of introspection from a learning. And, people are very different. And I think the coach and the swing gets a lot of blame when things aren't going your way. So I have been one of those that maybe looks for excuses. And because of my brain, you find all sorts of explanations for everything. But really what's changed my golfing journey was Club Champs, just how you give too much power to those voices in your head, and you don't have the confidence when you are in that moment because you actually haven't maybe practiced properly. And this has led me to subscribe to a really informative channel on the podcast. I mean, I came across some golfers from Britain who seemed to be in the same position as me. However, they were junior golfers who have got 20 or 25 years experience, where I am a late starter to the game, only really got going when I was 31 or 32, and I feel like it's taken me 5 years just to come to terms with the nature of the game. And from an athletic ability point of view, that has been quite an interesting test, just from working on form and working on stroking rather than using my athletic ability to control the ball and get certain outcomes. So it's got down to the point where this golfing experience has allowed me to track where is my game, where am I strong, do a proper analysis on where do I lose most of my holes. And this has led me to the pressure principle. It's a very good concept where I have just summarized the main points from this podcast, Making a Club Champion. Chris Baker actually interviews very much mind coaches, performance coaches, caddies, players, and it really is very relevant when it comes to the golf, because we are dealing with a game where you are a human and we are all different individual, and then the golf comes after that. And I think at the end of the day, I have been attaching so much external rewards to the golf, where actually I've lost maybe the love of the game. And if I think about the reason why I started the game, was there was this intrinsic focus component which made me really enjoy the game even when no one's watching. So I feel like I've got back to that place where I'm really excited to practice, and I really don't have a problem being a one ball. I really don't have a problem going out and practicing on the course on my own. And I think that's a quality and a mindset you've got to have if you want to see results come your way. But I really feel tightening my focus and sharpening my gaze is something I didn't really understand in the past. And with my coaches, they've done a very good job as sort of being a mirror. So I can actually see myself reflected back through them, and they've realized to get through to me, they would have to be one of those types of method coaches that can't throw information down my throat, but they know that I would be a good student and I would digest the information and get back to them when I actually felt that I'd like to clarify things from an understanding point of view. So the pressure principle is a big game changer for me, because now I find myself in more of those moments, like in a tournament, where I sort of lose control of my thoughts. I'm a very quick thinker, and that comes through into the golf. I used to be in sports where it was all reactionary and it was quick. So that is an understanding of who I am as a person, and I have this wiring which is very left-sided in the brain, and I'll get into all of that just from an analysis point of view. But I would like to just build on the 20 rounds that Mitch's Golf Diary was all about, because there was a pattern that was being detected in terms of what was I visualizing on the course, also what was I establishing as a routine. Even for all this time that I've been investing in the golf, I've never really stuck to a routine religiously, as, for example, a pre-shot routine. A pre-shot routine to me just solidifies your commitment to the shot, the path, and then at the end of the day, you can't actually blame the outcome, because you've actually achieved so much by committing to a certain type of path. And for me, that is the edge that the mental performance is going to have with the swing, as well as the interference that comes from reaching my potential. So the principles to effective practice include, obviously, I think, not to-do lists. We are often very effective to have not to-do lists, because when we have to-do lists, there's a lot of anxiety that comes with completing a task, and I don't want to go into a quantity type of completion. I want to go through a reward system where I reward quality, and I am a lot more maybe right-sided in my approach to taking these types of experiences and managing to do it in a particular moment where all I need is access to 55 or 60 units for which I would actually bank as some sort of a reserve for when I need it in the golfing journey. And I realize now, when it comes down to, am I really a good putter? No, because if I go and test that theory, I've got a test to assess whether I've got the principles of putting down. Have I really actually broken down the actual sport, not of the game of golf, but actually when you look at the components of the skill and how you have to be very good at moving from one, let's call it task, to the next type of task. I think that's really been the big challenge. And when I've been under a bit of pressure, I've really struggled to remember concepts that have helped me in other sports, which means to be very good with rhythmical breathing, to be very focused on not deferring thoughts, but at the end of the day, using useful information rather than hanging on to useless information. And if I do this, I will win at the end of the day. So I've come out of a week where I could not actually play any practice rounds, but I managed to log a training log, which is very similar to some of what the pros would do when they record data. But the main principles with this pressure principle, which was developed by a guy who's worked with top English rugby teams, top English golfers, British Olympic athletes, is I do not practice without a plan. I've really had to drill hard and actually writing out almost like a recipe or a plan for the day, not because I want to do those things, but because I need to do those things. High achievers always work from a sense of priority, and that's definitely for me. If I know that I've got a preset routine for how I would like to control the things that I can control, I'll be much better to narrow my focus, and then I'll be more adhering to setting an agenda and sticking to it. So I'm asking these questions on a daily basis. If this were the one thing I accomplished today, will I be satisfied? So today, for example, I was out at Royal Durban. It's always a positive reinforcement with the scenery. I think at the end of the day, you can be very creative with the space that's available there, with all the, let's call it vibrational energy that will surround that place, because there's a horse track that surrounds the whole course. And I always feel like I'm playing on a links course when I go there. So I feel quite at home working on things that I need to do. And if I can create pressure in certain ways, then I would obviously achieve the pressure principle in my practice. So today, if there was one thing I needed to accomplish today, will I be satisfied? And I was, because I had maybe a target of 3 systems that I wanted to complete, but it's really hard to achieve 3 systems in a 3-hour or 2-hour session. I think at the end of the day, the thing that's been standing out on the stats is my approaches with wedges. And there's a facility at Royal Durban between the distances of 55 yards through to 128, 130 yards. That is, to me, clutch distance to work on lob wedging all the way through to 8-iron, because I've got my 3 different swing types where you would obviously go almost with a half swing. I've also got the 3/4 swing, which will be always working better for me when I've got that southeaster, which was the case today, blowing in. So I was not getting, obviously, distance without the wind, but at the coast, I managed to get a 50-degree, pretty much within a dispersion pattern of 15 to 20 foot, and this was from a distance inside 95 or 90 yards, which is, quite hard to put your head around, because that just means I was hitting pitching wedge from around 101, 102 yards, and then 8-iron could easily be hit when you're facing 125, 120 yards. So really testing conditions, and if that's going to build my confidence, then I know when I plan